everyone, and welcome to the Limitless Ladies in Leadership podcast. I am your host, Danielle, and I've created a space for the many powerful, creative, and limitless female leaders to share their stories. From female CEOs to professional athletes and doctors, every powerful woman has a story to tell. There's no guarantee where this podcast will take us, so welcome to the unfiltered, unedited, and badass space for all women to align. Let's get started. On the phone with me today is Kaula Jacks. Kaula is a motivational speaker, personal trainer, and life coach. She grew up in Calvert County, Maryland, where she graduated from Huntington High School as a 4-year varsity basketball player and was later inducted in the Hall of Fame. Kaula completed her basketball career at Shaw University with a Bachelor's of Science in Athletic Training. During that time, she helped her team win the 2014 CIAA Championship and voted all-conference her senior year. Kaula, we've got so much more to talk about than what's in the intro, but I'm going to let you share that part later, so welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to hear more about your journey. So we mentioned basketball and athletics as a huge passion of yours. When did you begin playing or getting into sports?
Oh, man. As soon as I could. I would say as young as 5, but probably earlier than that. And at that time, it was nothing but boys around me, so it was every sport. I mean, kickball, football, bikes, skateboarding, anything I could get my hands on to keep me active and rough. But also, obviously, basketball was the thing that I gravitated to the most.
When you say nothing but boys around you, do you mean family-wise or school, or what do you mean?
Cousins, neighbors, school as well. I mean, I was always wanting to be active, so that's and they were always active, so that's where where the two came together.
Do you think that growing up with a bunch of boys kind of got you into more athletics and had you become more competitive later in life?
Probably more competitive, but the athletic part was destined for me. I mean, my whole family were athletes at some capacity. I mean, outside of even my mom did track. So lots of basketball, track, softball, like everybody's always been an athlete. So it was destined to happen.
That's cool. And you still playing basketball today? Yeah,
not competitively. So I usually go shoot around, and like actually a few days ago, I went and I played some 2-on-2, and I felt like I was like, why aren't I doing this at least twice a week? Like, because and I know you used to snowboard, it's like that feeling that you get, and I related to this book called Relentless when he talks about the dark side. I feel like when you just turn on and you're just like in straight compete mode, you're like, do whatever it takes. And that's what I get when I get that feeling, like in certain areas in our lives, that's what we need to like go straight through our goals.
Yeah. I can relate to that so much too. Like you were saying with the snowboarding, it's like, obviously here in San Diego, it's not like I can snowboard year round, but when winter comes around and I take a drive up to the mountains and, I'm not competitive anymore as far as like actual competitions, but I get on the slopes and it's like, it might take a run or two to really gain my confidence back. But once I'm back in, I'm like, man, I miss this.
And just fuels you for whatever's next and whatever's going on in your life. So definitely get to put it in. I don't know if I'll play I'm okay with just playing like a 2-on-2, 3-on-3 game. I don't need anything more than that.
Yeah. So after college, I know you started your own business, U360 Life and Fitness. So how did this come about?
So it came about. So I knew in college that I was like, I'm not going to do athletic training. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this for like ever. But at that time, I couldn't just switch my major because there was nothing better to switch it to that made sense at that school. So I stuck to it. After about a year of doing it, I had some experiences that, just like I said, I didn't feel like I was ready for. I didn't feel like I was prepared for. So I got another job as a health coach, and I was a health and wellness coordinator at a physical therapy clinic. And that is what started turning me to being like, oh, I want to be a health coach. I want to help people lose weight and get healthier. And that really stemmed from, my mom's been sick my whole entire life, and my family in general, they're not the healthiest people. We don't make the healthiest choices. I live in Southern Maryland, and here it's very, it's very much so we don't make a lot of changes around here, like typically. right? So the nutrition aspect is definitely slowly getting, people are starting to grab onto it, but it's a little resistance when it comes to that. And like, this is what I've always eaten, you know, this is what I've always done. And I'm still here. So, so that type of mentality. So I just definitely wanted to help people around me just live better lives.
Yeah. And I love that you're bringing up like the kind of family history and like the habits that go along with that, because I can relate to that so much too. My dad is extremely overweight. He's got, you know, all the conditions that are associated, the heart disease, the high cholesterol, the type 2 diabetes. And my mom's side of the family, like my mom's kind of got a different area of health issues where it's, you know, she's so obsessed with being in shape that, you know, I remember as a kid her just like doing these crazy jogs when we'd go to the mall, and it's like, can we just enjoy the day together, you know? And so I kind of had like both sides of it, but like as far as the family history goes, it's like I see in my dad's family especially just the repetitive diseases caused by repetitive habits, and like getting out of that can be so hard.
Mm-hmm. And we get confused and be able to like sit in it's genetics. There is a genetic factor to it, right? You're predisposed, but just like you said, it's the habits continuing to bring on those same habits is what ignites those genetics and makes them come alive. So what we're trying to do is, yes, you're genetically exposed to it. Yes, it's ran in your family, but it's the habits that's run in your family more so than the disease.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you said that, because that's what I've been telling people this whole time too.
Preaching.
Yeah. So what kind of coaching do you provide for your clients now?
So and that's where, and actually I'm going to be rebranding soon. So, but it's all this dichotomy of life and fitness, that it's more than fitness, that it's about living good life, and it's about pursuing your potential. So how can you get the most out of life? Not just we're talking energy, we're talking strength, we're talking clarity from a mental standpoint. I help people relieve stress, and it's not like it's just that I'm a habit change coach. So I don't just be like, relieve your stress, and then they're just like off and just feeling peaceful. I'm helping them integrate meditation, helping them integrate breath practice, and helping them integrate small habits to then relieve their stress, to create boundaries around their relationship, to create boundaries around their time, so that when they're putting in these health and fitness goals, they have room for it. People don't have room for it. Not in their mind. They're like, I don't have time for that. That's too much work. Their mind's so cluttered. So my first job is to declutter their mind, declutter their space, declutter their calendar, so that they actually have room. Like if you want new furniture, you're not going to put new furniture on top of old. You're going to get rid of the old furniture. So like that's, I think, where people skip that step. We skip steps a lot. And so it's really about getting down to the foundation and saying like, all right, what gets to be cleared out of the way before we even start?
Yeah.
And then from there, I mean, it's weight loss, energy, strength, figuring out what foods fit your body. And I'm not super deep into the nutrition aspect. It's like, you know enough to really perform and to get the basics, but, I'm not going into deficiencies and stuff like that. Of course, I recommend supplements and whatnot, basic supplements to get your daily vitamin and omega-3s, definitely things for women that we need, iron, especially during your period. But it's mostly, let's have all of these things come together and they not feel like you're losing out on one. And let's figure out what your priorities are, because that's why people don't have time, because they're doing they're not committed to anything. You know what I mean? They're doing everything, but not committed to anything.
Yeah. And I absolutely love this aspect, because I've seen so many trainers and so many like fitness programs or whatever that don't incorporate the time management, the emotional side, the psychological support, that all of this kind of stuff. They're like, here's a gym program, here's maybe a nutrition suggestion, and then let's follow that. But if we take it back another step, people are not going to follow these kind of things if they don't have everything else in order. And so I love that you're incorporating this. I think it just like creates this full package of everything.
Of course. And that's where the U360, it wasn't about going full circle. It's about hitting every part of the circle. Like make sure, let's touch everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's touch on every part of your life, especially the main three, like relationships, your health, and your finances. And I say finances because I correlate calories and macros and nutrients with finances, so people get it, so they can connect. Like, all right, you have a certain amount of money in your bank account. You have $1,250 in your bank account. That's going to be split between these three things. Splurge on your protein, spend all that money. Or even like when we talk about weight training versus cardio. Weight training is the investment. Cardio is the day-to-day job. You're going to get more day-to-day, but weight training over time, you're going to grow. Right? So when you say and you use these, when I use these analogies, it clicks for people. So they're hearing the same shit over and over every day, but you got to say it differently. So, they have that moment where it like clicks. And it makes it easier in that moment, I think.
I love that. Now, you mentioned earlier time management being an issue. I have struggled with this before. And, I have clients that talk about this too. They're like, well, I don't know if I could go to the gym, 5 days a week. That's too much. Or I don't know if I could meal prep because that's going to take 4 hours out of my Sunday, So just as a little example, can you provide some of the common things that people struggle with and what some of those solutions are?
With time, I think there's no intention in the morning or at night. So I always start, the first couple habits is a morning routine and a power down routine. Okay. Let's, if we can't control anything in the middle of your day, let's at least control the beginning and the end, how we start and how we finish. And so something simple as when I wake up, I meditate, and starting small. The biggest thing is starting small. In my own life, I still struggle with starting small because I'm always I just want to go right to it. But I know that it works. I know that 5 minutes every day is eventually going to lead to a more consistent habit than if I try to do 20 minutes or an hour of something every day. Okay. So I start in small pieces so they can start just grasping the habit. Like if you just show up at the gym every day, even if you don't work out, you're going to eventually start working out more than you ever had just because you started showing up every day. So in turn, to answer your question, morning routine, having a couple things that you do. And the morning routine's about energy, clarity, energy, and focus. It's like clarity on what I'm doing, intention on that, put intention on the attention, and then what am I doing? And also bigger thing than what am I doing? What am I not doing? Because that's where people get caught up in their time, not declaring what they're not going to do. I'm not going to get stuck on social media for an hour. I'm not going to check emails while I'm doing this. Making sure you're clear on what you're also, so you can catch yourself oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Right? This is my focus. And then the power down hour is about relaxation and restoration. All right, let me take the day off so I'm not carrying it into the next day. Let me do some things that relieve stress, whether I'm stretching. Power down means no technology. So you're stretching, you're doing puzzles, you're taking a bath, you're doing your hygiene routine, you're calming down, and you're actually sending signals to your body that it's time for rest. So when you actually lay down, your body's prepared for that compared to if I'm on my phone, most people are on their phone in their bed. They're gonna be up because they're activated. And now your body doesn't know that the bed is the place for sleep. Your body's getting confused. This is the place to watch TV. This is the place to be on social media. So when you lay down in bed, it doesn't recognize sleep gets to happen now.
I love that. I know I made a small change a couple years ago, taking a TV out of my bedroom because of that, because it was I'd catch myself. I would mentally think, oh, I'm just going to watch TV until I fall asleep. And then I'd realize that I'm staying up longer finishing a show. And then now I'm tossing and turning for the next hour and can't fall asleep. It didn't exactly serve its purpose.
Right. And so many people say that oh, I watch it just to fall asleep, or I just do this to relax. I'm but it's not it literally isn't though.
Yeah.
Physically or whatever you want to say, it just doesn't respond. Your body doesn't respond that way.
Yeah. So something that you had mentioned earlier when we were talking about starting your own thing is you said you didn't feel that you were ready for it yet. So this is something, as you know, we've talked off air many times, and I have had hesitation in areas that are like, well, I don't know if I could do it yet. I don't know if I'm qualified yet. I don't have enough of this or enough of this yet. So what finally got you into being quote unquote ready for it? And what kind of advice would you have for others that have been stalling because they don't feel ready yet?
Yeah, the biggest advice is to not expect to be ready. I don't expect to be ready because you're not going to be ready. You're just really not. What I did, I got my certification, thought everything like I made out this plan for my business. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this. I don't even have to work anymore. I quit my job in 2018 when I started this, and I immediately failed by the end of the year. Like, beginning of the year, I quit my job. The end of the year, I lost everything. And it was great. You know what I mean? And it was awesome because I'm here now. And without that experience, without that like those downfalls. See, the thing is, and everybody that is successful, we don't talk so much about the down portions. Once they get up, it's like we don't recognize as people, as we're looking at them as like, oh my God, they're amazing. We don't recognize or respect the fact of what they had to go through to get there. We just think they just poofed to there. Like, even with our bodies, it's just you. Like, no, I had to work for this. I love Chick-fil-A too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I used to be my family had Pepsis on deck. Like, I had to get over soda addictions. I had to get over fast food addictions. I had to get over, all of these different things. So this has been work. And so, but we don't talk about that. And I think we do. And even me, I want to talk more about the struggles, like influencers in general. Like, let's talk about the struggles so we can relate to everyone that wants to be where we are, the people that are looking up at us.
And I love that you brought this up. I want to dive more into this as well. And I just like the hardship part. This was one of my motivations in having this podcast, was to discuss this. And, I've had people that are millionaires on here, and I've had people that are Olympic athletes on here, and like they dove into that. Like it was like, no, it hasn't just been like this the whole time. And as you mentioned with like the fitness journey, I remember a little portion of time a couple years ago on Instagram, I'd have, we all get a little hate mail here and there, and I'd get a couple comments or DMs about like, well, it must be nice, must be easy for you, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like people surround that around race or like assumed finances or the way that we grew up. And I'm like, and I remember at the time getting offended because I didn't really understand why they were doing it at first. And I'm like, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere. There were drugs everywhere. I ate fast food and drank crap. I, worked in a freaking gentleman's club and was hooked on drugs. Like, I almost died. Like, there was like, this list of shit. And I'm just like, you have no freaking clue where I was. I was homeless before I came to San Diego, and I would get all defensive about it. And then I started realizing, I'm like, I don't share that. I don't tell people that on social media. I don't share the hardships, and a lot of us don't. And some of it is like I'm not embarrassed to, but it's just like part of me gets in my head of like, oh, I don't want to bring people down, or I don't want people to think that I want them to feel sorry for me. But bringing up these things and then attaching it to a level of success, like, look, this is where I came from.
That you overcame.
Exactly. That's what people can relate to.
Yeah, and so that's where we get to be. And even this is right now, I really feel good with my craft. So what I've switched to, so it's one in the business, it's like it's much more. And also I would say, when we get back to the question, understand that it's a business. Understand that you got to learn the business. Like, you can have your craft all you want, right? Like, you could be a great basketball player. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach. It doesn't always translate. So you can have a very good craft, but doesn't mean you're a great business person. And you can handle that portion. And of course, the number one thing you want to do is get it out of your hands first. But at the beginning, you're going to probably need to do a lot more by yourself if you don't have the financial ability to just pay somebody to handle all of this stuff right off the bat.
Yeah.
So learning that there's different facets to it, and always being a student.
Yes.
I started this thing January 1st, 2018, and I realized I was a student the whole time, but I also was a student that was coming from, I know. And today in the book that I'm reading called Ego's the Enemy, it said, you can't learn what you think you know. And that hit me. It's just like, kind of empty your cup, and things like that so you can still learn. But this phrase, you can't learn what you think you know. It hit me different because I always thought I knew something that I did not know. And because I thought I knew, I didn't listen to my coach that I paid like $5,000 for. I didn't listen to that one either because I thought this would be different because it's a different person. No, it was me not being able to humble myself, swallow my pride, or whatever the case may be, to become a student and to not know.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable enough to not know and to come from that place and learning.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And then on the second part of the hardships, I'd love if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your hardships. You had mentioned earlier just the way growing up, the diet and exercise habits and, the family disposition sort of thing. But what other hardships did you have before you started your business and then while you were in it? And how did you overcome that?
Mm-hmm. You mean like in my health journey?
Any of it, anything that could have held you back.
Oh, yeah. So, the first thing that comes up and why I think I had such a slow start in my business is because it was a money thing. It was actually some money boundaries. And, we went through like the same type of training, and I realized like it came to me that it was a worthiness issue. Right. And also programming from, I grew up, money doesn't grow on trees. Don't have money for this, no money here, that's expensive, a lot of scarcity conversations. And so I'm literally making my prices so that other people feel comfortable, or so like not just devaluing myself. I think a lot of people want to devalue themselves. I thought that I would get more sales if my price was cheaper. You know what I mean? I thought I'd be able to help more people if, I could charge them $25, but it doesn't work that way. And I had to figure out myself and stand in some ground where I don't also need to charge anyone thousands of dollars either, but stand in my ground and know my value and understand my value and be able to express that for people to really like get it and it not be some type of, I'm not losing, they're not losing it, create a win-win situation. Yeah. So overcoming that money thing and what do I charge? Giving people like discounts before they even ask for it. Yeah. It's a whole money mirror thing that I learned. Yeah. And it's all from yourself. It's how you vision yourself. So I needed to do some heavy work on myself in order to really understand my worth and stand in my worth as a business owner. So I always give so much, and it just I wasn't giving enough back to me due to this. Right. I was just serving everybody. But at the end, I was kind of dry. Yeah. In all the ways, financially, emotionally, physically, I was just giving. So that was huge. And yeah, fast food and soda was really big. And I still eat fast food now, but the relationship I have with it is so different. And yeah, so, and I don't teach, I don't teach people, I know the best way to go about a lifestyle. I know the best way to eat, but I also know we don't need to eat 100% clean and all these things to live a good life. So I try to find that balance. You know what I mean? And that balance where someone's going to stay off medication, perform in whatever way they need to perform, whether they're a mother or they're a mother and a business owner or whatever their performance is in their life, and be able to still feel like they're in control. Yeah. Still feel like they have a choice. Yeah. I love pizza. I want to eat pizza. If you tell me I can't eat pizza, I'm not interested, quite honestly. Yeah. Maybe we can make, I can eat it once a month. Oh, I can maybe deal with that. Right. Cool. Let's find that common ground. But fast food, because we live in a fast-paced world, not cooking. Just like you said, the meal prep, 4-hour meal prep thing. That was a big struggle for me to be able to start meal prepping. One, I didn't know how to cook at first. So that's a lot of people like, I don't know how to cook. I Googled everything. How do you boil an egg? How do you cook rice? How do you know chicken's done? My family cooked, but I was too busy outside playing stuff, playing in dirt, getting dirty. I didn't care about cooking when I was growing up. So I literally had to Google almost everything to learn how to cook. Okay. Then I had to actually separate the time to do it. And when people talk about the time, if anyone has time issues with meal prep, I tell them separate in 2 days though. Anyways, have a big meal prep and a mini meal prep, or 2 moderate ones. You know what I mean? You can make, it doesn't have to look like your friends. It doesn't have to look like the influencers that you said.
Yeah.
It needs to look like something that's going to fit your life.
Yeah.
If you don't have their life, it might not fit your schedule and your needs.
Yeah. There's a few things I want to comment on here that I love that you brought up. The first thing was when you're making the comment about like the quote unquote cheat meal, right? In the beginning, especially because I'm plant-based, like when I would like talk to people, I had this total all or nothing that was like, either you do it or you don't, like you stick to something, which I would love if people could do. But as I've learned through coaching clients and speaking to other friends, that a lot of times that is just not realistic for people, and giving up everything can be extremely scary. And the percentage of relapse is huge on something like that. So I started realizing, okay, if your goal is to eat less processed foods, or your goal is to eat less animal products, let's start with Meatless Monday. And then let's cut out, we'll sub out your dairy milk for almond milk, right? And we'll just make these little changes. And once you've been doing that for a couple weeks, then, let's do something else. Let's incorporate a higher percentage of broccoli to chicken ratio, or something like that, where we can make these smaller steps, and people are more likely to feel good about themselves. They're more likely to stick to it. And it's better for longevity. So I love that you brought that up. And when you were talking about the meal prep part, something that I'd like to touch on with this too, is sometimes people hear, 4 hours, like, oh my gosh, in the kitchen, whatever. A couple of tips that I've realized is like when you're cooking and you're chopping up stuff, and say you throw some stuff in a pan, while you're waiting for that stuff in the pan to cook, you can wash one of the dishes that you used, to chop up everything, one of the knives or something, cutting board, something you use there. And I think another thing people don't realize is the amount of time that they spent going to a restaurant, even if it's a drive-through. How much time do you spend driving there? How much time do you spend sitting in the line there, waiting for your food, driving back home, opening it up, eating at home? That entire time could be an hour, depending on how far away the restaurant is. If you're going to sit down, it's probably 2 hours. And so that was just one meal for you. So if you were to meal prep an entire week, or like you said, split it up into 2 sections, it's still less time to meal prep.
Because you're popping it in the microwave. You're putting it in the microwave, and you're sitting down to eating in 5 minutes or less.
Exactly.
Right. So it definitely, it's one of those things. It's an investment. You know what I mean? It's like put in the work now to gain more later. You're gaining more time. Invest this time now. You'll have the rest of your week.
Absolutely.
You have the rest of your week to do. Now you're not scarfing. Like now you can enjoy your lunch because you're not going out and doing all this. Now you actually have your full, if you have an hour lunch, now you actually have actually 55 minutes instead of 30, because you're going out and getting food and missing that. And so, because that stresses people out too, because they're on the road and they're going and they're, you know what I mean? Then they get something that's then make them feel like shit from 3 to 5, the rest of their day. So yeah, it's perfect.
And not to mention that, like, making stuff at home, you don't have to add the extra oil. You don't have to add the extra salt, preservatives, all the stuff that restaurants use. It's much cheaper. You can buy a whole bunch of whatever you're eating, turn that into meal prep versus like, the average meal, I don't know out there, but out here in California, it's like $10 to $20 depending on where you not fast food necessarily, but like if you go to a restaurant,
good
and then
quality food.
Yeah.
So the one tip I do want to say is just like the concept of what you're talking about when you're shifting someone into a more like veggie lifestyle. I like calling it veggie.
I like it.
Is that what's the meal that you have the most issues with? Like what's the meal that you make the worst choice on the most time? Is that your lunch? Okay, let's just prep lunch for the week. Let's just prep lunch for the week. Like, so we're not even prepping all the food. We're prepping the food that you make, that you have the least amount of time for in your day, that you really if you could really use that time back, or you make the worst choice of the day because you're stressed out at work and you just want something, to make you feel better about Paul, in your office. Like, so let's drop it back even that much. If you always skipping breakfast, okay. When we don't want you to skip breakfast because we're not intermittent fasting, okay, let's prep breakfast because you do well with lunch and dinner. So you can do it. You can break it down even to that much.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's really individual to the person.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that too, because every client is different. And I'm learning this through my journey too, that like, you know, obviously we're different humans. So people struggle with different things. Mm-hmm. And actually, speaking of clients, do you know how many clients you've had since the start of your business?
Not directly because of all of the other, this is my first year and I'm celebrating this. This is my first year with no other job.
Wow.
Like this is my first year. Like my third year, I said, hey, and because, well, I got hella fired like 3 times last year anyways for COVID and for my reasons, like we'll put them together. But that was like, you know what, this is a sign. You don't need to work for anyone else. Just focus on yourself. You got this. Because I always wanted that safety net. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I couldn't let go of that safety net, but this year I'm letting go of that safety net. So I include my clients that were also at, you know, Equinox. They were also at other people, but I've helped over 200 people in this last 3 years for sure. And at all different lengths and times and different things of that nature. But it's been really nice. And most of these have been women and men losing weight, athletes, and also the older population, because my degree is in athletic training. So, and I started off in the physical therapy world. So I can really build somebody up from, like, I tore my ACL during the time I was learning about this stuff. So lower body injuries, I provide programs for people to really build up that strength, prevent injuries, or rehab stuff too. So
that's amazing. And I love that you brought up letting go of the safety nets, because that was one of the biggest things. You know, you were part of this journey with me and the encouragement in quitting my last job. And I just remember the fear going along with it. It was like, I have medical, I have dental, I get paid, you know, more than minimum wage. I have, you know, tons of benefits, including free produce, because we were a produce distributor. Like, this is crazy. I can't leave my job, you know? And what I started realizing through you, and as you mentioned, we were in a leadership program together, that it was taking up so much of my time. It was 40 hours a week plus a 30+ minute drive, depending on traffic each way. So that's an hour extra a day. So that's at least 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, 45 hours a week that I'm spending, that it's not accelerating me in any way. Like, I had already gotten to the point where HR had made it clear that there wasn't another position above mine and that this is kind of where I'm stuck. And so letting go of that safety net was extremely scary. But at the same time, I'm like, man, what can I create now with that extra 50 hours a week? What can I create? And that in itself is a huge responsibility. It's like, you better use this time wisely, but not waste it all because you just gave up your paycheck. But the opportunity for growth is so much greater.
And independence, right? Or in really not in just anytime I say that, I gotta say, not that that's the highest way of being. We really want to be interdependent, being able to know that 2 independent people come together to create something better. Like, it's not just about me. And that goes back to, just to go back to the struggles. I wanted to do it all by myself. And I wanted to recreate the wheel. So I did it. It was my name. Like, I didn't want anyone's anything on it. Huge mistake. Like, copy those people, like, follow those crumbs, like, really utilize those people that you're looking at. Like, you don't have to recreate the wheel. And I tried to do that so many times and then I just ran in circles. Literally ran in circles.
I'm laughing because I relate to you. So I had seen something in your bio about the 7 healing habits of health. What is that?
Yeah, so that's a paradigm that I came up with. So I get stuck in the creative mode. I really do. And so, and what I say, and that's what I mean by I can get stuck in the creative mode and like forget, like, oh, I'm running a business. I got to actually profit from this because I don't have any other job. But I can spend all day just like making videos and moving my body and like creating things. And so one day I love words. I love things that go together. I love acronyms and all these things. And so it was an acronym that I made up. And that kind of felt like, honestly, I don't teach it as much now, but I'm reincorporating into this last program that I have. So it stands for hydration, exercise, alleviate stress, leverage metabolism, intention / identity, The N is nutrients. Well, really the N is nutrient / nourishment, because, that's what we want. We ultimately want nourishment. And then the G is, get sleep.
Nice. I didn't realize it was an acronym. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's an acronym for all those things we need: hydration, exercise, alleviate stress, leverage your metabolism, meaning either use, and I use intermittent fasting. I don't use keto, but leveraging your metabolism is just fat adapting. Mm-hmm. Can you burn fat just as well as you burn carbs? Right. And also weightlifting. The L, what is the L? The I is that intention identity. Who are you? Who do I want? Like, what's my intention? Like, why? That's the why. Like, why am I even doing this? And that's one of the biggest things. I wish I could just put it first, but these aren't in any specific order. It's just cool because it went down with the healing part.
Yeah, I love it. So you've brought up intermittent fasting a few times now. So I'm very familiar with it. I'm a huge proponent of it as well. But for those listening, they might not quite understand what that means. So I'd love if you could go into some more detail.
Yeah, intermittent fasting. I started getting into that in the very beginning of, before I even had a business, because a lot of my family members had diabetes. And so I started studying like type 2 diabetes, and, I don't remember his name now, but he has like a couple books out. I would talk about him every single day. He has a couple books out called The Obesity Code, The Diabetes Code, Jason Fung. Right. And I started reading his books, and I loved the way, I just loved it. Like, and it talked about insulin resistance. I started realizing how pharma, really in general, they're all about symptoms. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's lower your blood sugar. Great. Lower my blood sugar all you want, but the blood sugar isn't the problem. It's the symptom of the insulin resistance. Right. So, and then I have too much insulin, so much that my body's resisting it. Let me add more insulin. This shit doesn't make sense. He has this whole thing and a lot of experience about using intermittent fasting for diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And so I started fasting myself because I don't tell anybody I'm doing anything I haven't done. Mm-hmm. So I started at an 18-6 ratio where I was fasting for 16 hours, eating for 8. Started to love it. Loved it. And I saw the benefits. Automatically your belly is going to be flatter. You know what I mean? You're going to start leveraging your metabolism by teaching your body how to go longer without food, especially without carbs, right? So you can start getting into those fat stores. And also if you are insulin resistant, so that the benefit of intermittent fasting when it comes to insulin resistance is that we have a bunch of insulin, an overload of insulin that isn't working anymore. When the longer you fast, the more time you allow for the insulin to get low. Mm-hmm. The more we eat, it's just going to keep rising and rising and keep being present. Yeah. So we got to create longer periods of time where the insulin can lower and get really low and even start being utilized because you're moving. Mm-hmm. So while you're fasting, you want to work out. You want to do that because you want to use this extra insulin up to start increasing the uptake of it, the sensitivity of the cells, like taking it up again. So that's the benefit from type 2 diabetes, but from a body composition standpoint, leveraging your metabolism. Mm-hmm. It's just like keto, but I like carbs. Right. Like that doesn't like, I don't want that. Yeah. I'd rather not eat than to not eat carbs. Yeah. Right. So you can get the same thing out of them, but intermittent fasting is definitely an easier, more idealistic way for me. And it's a lifestyle, not a diet. Yeah. And you can shift that period anytime you want. So I did a 12 to 8. It doesn't matter, girlfriend. Like if you're busy, mostly from 7 to whatever the 8 hour, 7 to 1, or 7 to 3, like have that be your eating window. You can shift that window to make it fit your life. Yeah. Okay. So I guess my biggest advice, or for people who want to start intermittent fasting, I really start with the 18-6. Mm-hmm. I think it's relatively easy. But if someone can't do that, then I will go to like a 12-12, but try to move them to 18-6 as much as possible. Then maybe a warrior fast. And honestly, we could go say so much about this, but it becomes a manipulation of how often you fast that really, like, I'll tell you this. I had a client didn't have a pancreas or got like pancreas surgery. She couldn't lose weight. What's the pancreas do? It provides the insulin.
The insulin, yeah.
Right? So, and what we did is we did a range of 24-hour fasts, like longer fasts and shorter fasts all throughout the week to kind of manipulate it. And she eventually, it still happened slowly because her body was used to, it was really shot.
Yeah.
But she ended up losing 10 pounds after years of not losing like more than 3 pounds.
That's great.
So it's super cool what you can do with it.
Yeah. And
super cool.
One of the other things sorry. One of the other things I really like.
Good. I like the last thing. Yeah, good. Just the last thing I'll tell you. The last thing, what people get confused with, most people, like, not your client, because she's obviously overeating, the one that was eating 27,000 calories. But most of the people that I meet up with are undereating. They're undereating. So to put someone that's already not eating enough in intermittent fasting and not stressing that they got to eat more in that small period of time is key. Because most people are already not eating enough, and then they put themselves in a position to eat less.
Exactly. And that's what I was kind of going to say on the other side. For the people that tend to overeat, I tend to have that kind of personality that the intermittent fasting works for me, because a lot of times I used to start my first meal at noon and then end my last one either at 6 or 8, depending on the cycle at night. But I realized that, like, at that, I don't know, I get up so early that, like, at that point, I get so hungry that I tend to overeat, but I pushed it down to 10 a.m. And the cool thing is that especially as you make that window smaller, if I'm only eating from 10 a.m. to 4, I tend to eat less calories, unless the only thing that does happen sometimes is if I say my eating period ends at 4 and it's like 3:30 and I know that, like, according to MyFitnessPal, I can eat some more calories. I'm like, oh, I better eat them all now because I can only eat for a half hour. So I guess for me, my point is that, like, I have to kind of, like, watch it. And there's some people that can get like that. But, like, overall, I highly agree with I love it. I think it's been a great thing. And I also wanted to mention regarding the diabetes, I have a couple good friends, Robbie and Cyrus, who run Mastering Diabetes online. And Cyrus is a doctor. I love them. They're like they're really close to me. I've known them for a long time. And they really touch on about how diet has such an influence on type 2 diabetes. And they even talk about type 1.5, which a lot of people are not aware of, but it's kind of a combination between type 1 and type 2. And they just came out with a new book too. So a little shout out to Robbie and Cyrus. But I love that you brought this up, because that's something that they talk about as well.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of their content and was turned to them through my explorations of this thing. They're great. They're awesome.
Yeah, if you ever need a connection, let me know.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that afterwards. Last little question I want to talk about before we get into where everyone can find you and learn more about you is sleep and stress management. So these are two things that I think, like, for me, I deal with a lot. We're in a busy world these days. People's schedules are all over them, all
over the place.
All over the place, just like my words right now. And as you mentioned with, like, the looking at the phones and, not being able to fall asleep, how can all of this incorporate? If we're not having proper stress management, if we're not getting proper sleep, how does that affect our nutrition and our basic outcomes?
Yeah. So with stress, obviously, and sleep, everyone knows about cortisol. So your cortisol is going to rise. Cortisol is going to prevent. So cool, you're working out, you're going to the gym, you're going hard, but you're not sleeping and you're stressed out. Your cortisol is going to stay high. That your muscles, can you still hear me? My mic just changed.
Sounds really different. Hold on, just restart that sentence and I'll just cut this part out.
So when we talk about stress and we talk about sleep, we talk about hormones like that. We really want to regulate our hormones, and cortisol for one. And so when we're going to the gym, we're working out. The only way that workout's really going, especially when we're lifting weights, we got to recover from that workout. And cortisol doesn't allow, it actually stops muscle growth and increases fat. So, And then when we don't sleep and we're stressed out, we also have sugar cravings. So cravings start to come in the mix, energy dips, all of these different things that start to happen, and we start to blame it on anything else. We'll go to the doctor, say this is happening, but it's really just a matter of managing stress and sleep. So I don't remember what the specific question was, but really people are stressed out because I feel they don't take control of their life. They allow their life to be pulled each and every way. Okay. And so this is what I'm talking about with boundaries and priorities. Mm-hmm. Knowing what's most important to you and creating boundaries around those. If your kids are most important to you, set up some time to hang out with that kid. You like chill with that dude or that girl and protect it with your life. If health is the most important thing to you right now, and it's all about calendar. I worked in my calendar like crazy. Put your workout in your calendar, protect it with your life. Yeah, I would love to do that for you. So it's not about saying no, but it's saying not yet or not today or even delegating. I would love to do that for you, but can I do that for you after 1 because I have a workout at that time? Mm-hmm. I would love to do that for you, but I know a friend that actually would even be probably better for you. Let me let you talk to this person. So it's about delegating and really respecting our time and our space, and our energy. And it's not selfish. And it actually creates, when I'm in that space, I give a higher quality.
Exactly.
My giving is higher quality, whereas other people are just giving and it's kind of like the scraps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we can still give. We just give at a higher quality if we set those boundaries.
I love that. Thank you.
And we understand what we're up to.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. Well, Kayla, I am so impressed with everything that you're doing. I love that you're incorporating so many of these other factors into the whole spectrum of health and fitness. It's not just going to the gym. It's not just diet. Those two things are obviously extremely important, but we're talking about time management. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about really mental clarity. And we barely even scratched the surface on some of these topics today. And I can't wait to hear more about what you're doing and invite people to your program. So if people are interested in learning more, are you also teaching anything virtually? Is everything in person?
Yeah. No. So I do virtual, online, and in person.
Okay.
So my online's through my app. So they'll get the app, blah, blah, blah. They'll have the videos. They'll have the nutrition. They'll have progress pictures, all of these things through the app. And then the virtual I do through Zoom. We're like one-on-one right here. Like I see you, I'm cueing you, I have my eyes on you the whole time. And then obviously in-person one-on-one is I can actually touch you and manipulate your body a little bit more. So I offer all of those things for everyone around the world, depending on where you are. And you can find Instagram, as I think that's what you're asking next, right? Instagram at Kaula, Kaula _Jacks, Jacks. Kaula Jacks on Facebook. I honestly don't even know my TikTok because I just made one and didn't really use it. But TikTok's coming soon. Look out for those. Whatever my username is, I'll figure it out and then give it to you.
And then is the app the same name as your business, the U360?
Yeah, the app, you can only get the app through me. That's through signing up.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't just go download it. But that's coming up next. Stay tuned for that.
That's awesome. I love speaking to women leaders and business owners because every time towards the end of the podcast, every one of you has been like, and next I have, it's never just I've hit this certain level of success. So it's I love that you're talking about what's coming up, what's moving forward. We have something to look forward to with you. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for sharing. We had so many cool little tidbits of information and little facts and suggestions. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is super fun.
Yay! I'm so excited. And for everybody who's listening, we will list all of Kayla's links in the description of the podcast today. So be sure to check her out on social media as well as with the website. And thank you everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time.